Us, that more people would know Jesus. Ours was a love story. Sometimes, especially the early years, more like a soap opera. My parents brought Charles's dad home. They'd gone out to a place nobody here probably knows about, the Ace Clubs. Down south we call it a juke joint. He brought him home. She was going to cook him a southern meal. My mom was not a great cook. And Charles's father said to me, "You're going to marry one of my sons." I was 16 at the time. Pete says they drew straws and Charles lost. I don't think Charles ever thought he lost. He thought he was a winner. We were married for 52 years. They said it wouldn't last, and only by God's grace did it last on both of our parts. Neither one of us were perfect by any means. God's grace, nothing less than God chooses to love the unlovable. Romans 5:8, even while we were enemies of God, Jesus gave his life as a perfect sacrifice so we could be his friend and be adopted as part of his family. Charles loved his girls, Charlie's angels, Christine, Rachel, and Melissa. He enjoyed his 5 grandchildren and always bragged about them. The 2 little great-granddaughters, he was sometimes overwhelmed when they visited by the energy they had. Charles was a quiet man and a good listener. Being married to me, he had plenty of practice. Charles, after he was in the Air Force, he really didn't like leaving West Kingston. He never stopped me, but he preferred home. Whenever you needed something, I can hear him say, "If they don't have it in town, we probably don't need it." He really missed West Kingston when we moved to Wakefield, but he enjoyed going to West Kingston and sitting on Margaret's back porch when the weather was good on a nice day. Rides to Narragansett to see the ocean and then stop for ice cream. We really spent all our time together the last few years. He was always sweet and kind, saying thank you whenever I did anything for him. Charles never lost his wry sense of humor. A few weeks ago, I kissed him on the head. I said, "I love you." And he said, "Well, why do you love me?" I said, "Well, why do you love me?" And his response was, "Because you're so damn miserable." I said, "That can work both ways." So I'll end with a quote by Ludwig Jakubowski. "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." I'm so glad we had our years together, and God gave us our precious children and all the wonderful people in our life. Thank you.
It ain't dying I'm talking about, it's living. I doubt it matters where you die, but it matters where you live. These words were spoken by Augustus McCrae, one of the main characters in the Lonesome Dove book. That was one of my dad's favorite books. I've been reading a lot over the last couple of years, but I had never read that book. Once Dad passed away, I decided that I wanted to read it, maybe to feel closer to him, or just because I wanted to know about all the things that he loved that I never really paid attention to. It ain't dying I'm talking about, it's living. And my dad sure was proud of where he lived. He was a true swamp Yankee. He would always make comments like, "Providence? What the hell would I go to Providence for?" He loved West Kingston, where he spent most of his years, and Noank and Mystic when he grew up. He loved country music, cowboy books, horses, gardening, woodworking, and of course Budweiser beer. I remember him picking me up from elementary school with Budweiser in the cup holder. Never thought much of it, but I don't think you can get away with that anymore. We would take our trips to Wolf Rocks, where he would get his Bud and I would get my clearly Canadian or an ice cream cone. Years later, in doctor's orders, he switched over to his O'Doul's when he gave up the beer. I remember being little and sitting in his workshop while he did his woodworking and played his Marty Robbins and other old country music and the smell of sawdust. I'm not really sure what I did in that workshop. If I learned anything by watching him, but sometimes just being around him was enough. He always had the best and simplest advice. Like when I was 19 and terrified to tell him that I was pregnant, I sat there crying and I remember him saying, "Well, what are you crying for? Nothing you can do about it now." When my son was little and would ask all kinds of questions, I said to him one day, "God, this kid just doesn't stop asking questions." And he simply said, "Well, you could have had a stupid kid." Or the times when I was broke and would ask to borrow $20 and I'd be so worried about paying him back. And he would simply tell me, "Good thing it's just money." One weekend, as his health declined, I went and stayed the night so that my mom could go away. That's when I noticed that the roles started reversing, because that was the first time I had to tuck him into bed. And that's when I had flashbacks of him as a child, when he would come either stand in the doorway or tuck me in and say, "Night, darling," or "Night, pumpkin." Then I started to go over on Sunday mornings. Now, that was my time with my dad. My mom would go to church and him and I would sit. We'd talk over coffee and maybe some Allie's donuts. He would ask how many books I've read so far. Or sometimes we would just sit in quiet, because I knew he had spent the last 52 years listening to my mom talk. So maybe he just needed some peace. Those are actually the moments that I'm gonna miss the most. Just sitting with him. No words needed to be spoken. Just the calm of his presence and being with him. What do you think happens when we die? Maybe it's not as big of a change as we think. Maybe you just go back to where you lived, or near your family, or wherever you were happiest. Only you're just a spirit now, and you don't have the troubles the living have. Clara from Lonesome Dove said that. I'd like to think that Clara was right, that his spirit is still here in South County, surrounding all of us, that the people that he loved and that loved him.
Hey everybody, I'm Isaiah. I'm his grandson, one of his grandsons.
I'm lonely.
Yeah. Anyone who knows me or knows my grandpa really well knows how close I was with him. I lived with him since the day I was born until I was 13, so he was a huge part of my life. My grandpa was, everyone knows he had a great sense of humor. He was always super funny, and he always knew how to make everybody laugh. And one of the things that he used to say that used to make me laugh all the time was he always used to tell me I was always good at everything. Everything I did, he always said I was good at it. I'd be singing in the shower, and I'd come out of the shower and he'd be like, "You're a singer, you should get on American Idol or something, you're really good at that." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'd be dancing around the house being stupid, and he'd be, "Yeah, you're a good dancer, you should dance." I just kind of laughed when I was younger. I thought it was him being funny. And as I got older, I started to realize that he wasn't joking. Like, he genuinely meant everything that he said. And I was talking to my dad a couple weeks ago, and he said it perfectly. My grandpa knew how to make you feel important. And, excuse me. I wouldn't be half the person I am today without it. He was an incredible human, and I just want to thank him for everything that he's done for me. And thank you all for coming and supporting my family. Thank you.
Is there anybody that wanted to come up and say anything? Share a story? Something funny? I don't know.
I should share that story.
I really should share that story.
They'll get it. Oh my God. That was a sick.
Hi, I'm Ray. I'm Charles's nephew. And I remember being a teenager and working with Charles one summer. And he was always, like I'm one of 7 kids, and our house was chaotic, no doubt. But working with him that one summer, it was like he had patience, and he was always very kind to me. And that's what I remember about Charles, his patience and understanding. And it stayed with me all my life. That's all I got to say. He will be missed.
I don't have to hold it. Hi, I'm Sue, or Susie to my Uncle Charles, and I'm not going to say much. That will surprise most of you. No. I had to say something because my Uncle Charles was so special to me, and Aunt Linda, and when I needed to find a home to be able to raise my daughters near my parents, Charles and Linda at the same time needed to find a new place to live, and so we looked in West Kingston because that was the parameters. Charles wasn't going to live out of West Kingston, so we had one choice. There was a duplex in West Kingston. It was, Providence. We needed to buy that duplex, and I had 16 wonderful years living there, mostly because Charles would catch the bats for us. We called him our Batman because every spring there was bats. I mean, poor Amanda, there were some nights we were watching TV when I grabbed the blanket and ran to the front door to get Charles and left Amanda behind. Becky, she I think had her own blanket too. I just remember one incident. Maybe she was at home at the time, but she has a lot of bad stories too that Uncle Charles saved us from. But really just being able to have that safe environment close to my parents, and I stopped having to pay for childcare, which really helped because Charles was always home with Alyssa after school. And so Becky and Amanda had Charles next door if they needed him. And so he was there. And I could tell a lot of stories, but I said I wasn't going to talk about it. So I just wanted to say that he will definitely be missed, and he's left such a wonderful legacy. I mean, his grandkids are so wonderful, and his beautiful daughters and wife. And I think all of us in this room were all touched by his kindness and gentleness and just sincere. He just loved people, and he always made you feel loved. So thank you, Uncle Charles.
Well, I had to say something, otherwise I would regret not saying anything. He was a man of simple pleasures, and his brow was rarely furrowed unless, there was a little too much noise going on. And he just knew how to take time as it went, and his patience is something I'll always strive for. And he was a great man. I remember the first time he offered me a beer, which was an O'Doul's, and I couldn't say no. That was the first beer I had with my grandpa, and the last one. But when I first lived there, he let me live there for a few months, and he always loved that I used to play guitar when I was younger. I was no, stud, but he brought his guitar out, and he just like tuned it in front of me with his, arthritis, and just strummed a few notes. And when he handed it to me, he just, watched me play chords in awe, even though it was just simple. And I didn't realize what I had while it was there. And that sound will, every time I touch those strings, I'll think of that day. And he will be missed, and he will be loved by all. I just had to say that. Thank you.
Harvey Whitley, a good friend of Charles and Linda. It was around 2004 that I had the pleasure of meeting Charles, and we got to know each other, and it was very appropriate that we're in this place because he said, hey, let's take our wives here, and there's a dance coming. So many times we take our wives and we go dancing. But it was a lot of fun to share memories with Charles, his memories of the Air Force, his memories here of West Kingston. It was just great. So I'm so happy that we can honor him in such a wonderful way. A great man.
I could tell that crazy story. That was priceless. What were we, like 18, 19? Perfect. But I was late.
Oh, John.
Don't ever give her Jack Daniels. That's all I can tell you. Stay away.
Go get her a shot.
Oh, don't give it to you. Lois will come out.
Can you hear me? I got a story for you. There you go. Me and Charlie used to work together. And after work, we'd stop for a beer. So we went to the Anchor Dairy Bar. It's a bar, but we called it the Anchor Dairy Bar. And we had a few beers. So then we went home. The next morning, I picked Charlie up, and he looked really funny. And I says, what's the matter with your face? He says, I can't find my teeth. I don't know, he says. I get up this morning and my teeth are gone. So we go to work, and I dropped Charlie off at his house. I went back to the Anchor. So, Kalika, who owned the place, he's talking to this guy next to me, and he says, geez, he said, a funny thing happened. He says, I went into the men's room, and I'm cleaning up, and I found a set of false teeth. I says, hang on to them, I know who owns them. So I called Charlie up, and Charlie, I says, I found your teeth. Go down to the Anchor, they're waiting for you.
That's cute. That's excellent. Man, I remember. Hanging out at school. Oh, yeah. We used to keep me at school. Look at Beach Balls. He's working out his chances.
How's everybody doing? I know it's not the best occasion, but I'm glad that everybody's here. I really think I really think that we have a strong family. We don't always get along. You know, sometimes we go years without seeing each other, but I think we all took that from my grandfather. Like, you know, even if it's been a long time, you see somebody, and you know, it's like it's like that time is gone. It's like, you know, that time was never left. I saw Matt Patty, and you know, it's been a long time. I was talking to the other grandson, Clint, and we were talking about how obsessed with Weird Al we used to be. And driving up, we went on vacation, and we went to their house, and we're just like driving Rachel crazy, like, singing all these Weird Al songs, bumping it in the car. And I think, you know, I really took that from my grandfather, and that, you know, everybody that you meet in your life is, you know, you gotta appreciate a soul. You gotta appreciate people that, you know, just make their way into your life. We can't choose our friends and family, you know, but you can. But then you just an a-hole. but I don't know. It's just he always had that positive attitude. I never really saw it. And Danny was saying it. He was like, you know, Charlie never yelled. He was never. You know, and he could talk to you when he was mad and he wanted you to know something. You're gonna know, but he didn't have to yell to do it. All he had to do was give you those words, because you know that, you know, his words. Some people in this life, their word, almost every word that they say, just makes that impact. It's like, you know, and being younger. He never shooed me away. He never, any of his grandsons, like, he'd be working on something in the house, and it was never like, get out of here, kid. It was always like, oh, let me show you this. Let me show you how this works. Remember, there's a picture of me. I must have been, how old, Mom? 5. And I got my little tool belt. And I got, like, the blueprints and this hat.
That's the tool belt on that table over there.
Yeah, that tool belt right over there.
That's the exact one he's wearing.
That's the exact tool belt. And maybe the picture's up there, I don't know. But he always gave you that drive, like you were saying, you know? And thanks for, dude, you made me break down so much. I couldn't take it. And like you said, we all grew up in that crazy house. We're all so close. We're all so close. It was like a big, hectic family, but it worked. And sometimes chaos in a family brings more love, because you appreciate, like, when everything settles out. And, you know, God, why would we so hesitant about that? Why do we make that such a big deal? You know, it's like Charles is gone, but he was always willing to listen and not hold a grudge. And I don't know, I think if we all took that would, you know, just make everything a little better, I think. But I had to say something, and I almost didn't, because this is crazy. But, you know, I love all you guys. I love my guys. He's always going to be there, doing the crazy stupid shit.
So that's like what I ended up doing on Friday with my mother. She thought she was having a heart attack. So Kevin shows up. I
think that's everybody. I don't see anybody else jumping out of their seats.
Yeah, she shows up. She's attached to her.
Linda, did you want to come up?
There you
This is a poem that Charles had written. We have two. They're on the back of the bulletin. He was really a very deep thinker, and I tried to get him to write more stuff down, but he didn't always listen. I talked too much. Mankind. What is mankind without our God? A mere leaf in a spin, a greed, an anger, a wisp of dust, a very fleeting thing. For God is love, a gentle wind that asks us be the same. For 'tis His glory that we seek, to make this sad world sane. Without His love, this world is lost. Believe His word is true, and only through the love of God can man find the real you. And we all know in this day we really need that. So that came from his heart. His brother-in-law, my sister Patty's husband, they spent a lot of time together, and he was feeling really bad that he didn't get up to see Charles. So, and I read this to him while we were at the hospice place in Providence, and it's by Michael Weber, my brother-in-law, An Angel Like Me.
As I sit here crying today, I saw an angel come down to take Charles away. The angel looked over and said, "Please don't you weep. For Charles, you see, has an appointment to keep. I was sent from our Father, the Creator above, the giver of life with unending love. He created Charles and sent him to you to make life here on earth more loving and true. Now the day has come for his new life to begin, in heaven with God, no more pain, no more sin. So I'm taking Charles to heaven, you see, to be someone's angel, an angel like me." We'd just like to thank you all for coming and celebrating his life, and just seeing all the people that are here makes us feel good and know that he was loved. So thank you again for coming.
There's not a whole lot left, but there's plenty of dessert and coffee.
If anybody wants to help clean up.